Thea Green founded Nails.INC in 1999 at the age of 23 and has since gone on to revolutionise the UK nail industry with her polishes and treatments. In 2013, Nails.INC was awarded Queen's Award for Enterprise for International Trade and today exports to over 20 countries. Keep listening to learn how Thea started in South Molton Street with her first ever store and then very quickly expanded from there. Hosted by me, Juliet Fallowfield, founder of Fallowfield & Mason. Our mission is to enable you to master your own storytelling, whether that be via PR or podcasting, all with a long-term view. Thank you, Thea, for joining How to Start Up today. It would be great, before we get started in the topic of sales, to find out about the business that you started.
Yep. So I'm Thea Green. I'm the founder of Nails.INC. Started my business quite a long time ago, which makes me very old, back in 1999, which is Nails.INC. And since then, we've gone on and opened up a number of other brands as well.
And you were 23 when you started. What brought you to that revelation at such a young age?
So I think all my life, I don't remember not, I'd always wanted to work in fashion since I was a small child, and I wasn't particularly good at drawing. So I went to London College of Fashion straight from school and did a fashion journalism marketing degree and absolutely loved it and always wanted to work in that fashion environment. I still feel like Nails.INC today is very involved in that fashion sphere in lots of ways. So I still feel like I work in fashion. I started working in magazines, really enjoyed it. But definitely, I think one of the things I loved about magazine was the end consumer. I think I very quickly became obsessed with what she or he wanted when they were reading it. They wanted advice about what to wear, particularly Tatler, what to buy, where to go on holiday, where to travel, what to read, what books were interesting, who to listen to in a podcast. Wasn't quite podcast generation, what to watch, all of that. And I think I just became obsessed with the customer. And so I think that was a kind of natural progression to go, well, I love working at magazines, and you are serving the customer because you're telling them what's next. But also the skill you learn, and you'll know this well from doing journalism, is you really enjoy working out what's next. So when you see a little trend bubbling, so it could be a big macro trend in terms of sustainability, or it could be just a color trend. Everyone's wearing X, or something that's coming from a kind of street style trend, or something that's coming from tech that you think is relevant in beauty or fashion, or even from food, which is often a big influence. I love that game because there's so much that happens all the time, but 90% of it doesn't stick. So I love
The jigsaw puzzle.
I do love that
Yes.
jigsaw puzzle of going, oh, I saw that, which reminds me of that, and that's coming. And that means that probably we'll all start liking X, and that kind of trend forecasting, which doesn't sound like it has a huge amount to do with nail polish in my business, but I feel like that's the obsession is about what's coming next and what does the customer want. Like, I'm obsessed with definitely the retailer that's buying the product. I know we're going to talk about sales, but more the end consumer. Like, what does she or he want? And what's their desire to purchase? So is it because they need something that's going to save them more time, or they need something that's completely on trend right now, or they need a problem solution because they don't have the budget to go to salons right now? So it's those kind of problem solutions that I really love. But I'm obsessed with the customer, obsessed.
It's really interesting because we were chatting before saying how a lot of people talk about businesses failing, and it's not the fact that the idea isn't good, it's the fact that they haven't got revenue in the business or they haven't got cash flow. But I think a lot of the time we see our clients on the PR side of the business not solving the problem for their client. They're doing something they want to do, but they're not thinking, is there an audience for this? Does somebody want to listen?
Yes.
For example, a PR pitch, we want to be on Vogue. So why does a Vogue writer want to write about you for their reader? And going to that end result and working backwards. So for you, I think it was a trip to the US and you were seeing nail salons over there that inspired you, that it just didn't exist in the UK?
They didn't exist here. Women in the States at the time were getting their nails done at least once a month. Many women getting their nails done on a weekly 10-day basis. And in the UK, it was the complete opposite, which is the women that we did in a focus group, we did a focus group just before we started the business. They all had got their nails done. Never was the most common answer, or for their wedding day, or like a daughter's bar mitzvah or something. It was so infrequent. It was really once or twice in their lifetime. Some people had gone on a spa day with their sister or their mum, and so they might have got a manicure then.
Just for the record, manicures and spas are never good. You want to go to your high street and you want to get a quick manicure, and they are the best mani-pedis out there. I had friends in Sydney saying we just want Australian manicures in England. And so you were fixing that problem.
They didn't. And then I think even in the US, there was this frequency of women having their nails done regularly, but they didn't have a brand or a product. So there wasn't an association that they were quite scruffy and great service, no frills, but nice and affordable. And really, I wanted to bring that idea, but put product with it and build a brand. With the very much from day one, you talked about revenue earlier, very much from day one, that the product would be able to be sold outside the salons, that the product would become recognized quickly enough. Because the year we started was .com year, right? It was 1999. When people would start to buy beauty online, that they would be interested in buying Nails Inc. because the brand was established through the nail bars and through touching customers and having that experiential experience with them.
So the product would work in a salon environment, and then you could also take it home and top up your nails yourself.
Yeah, or buy it online and you weren't coming getting a service, and it would be an easy to use product that you could use yourself with or without the nail bar.
So given you've got the idea, you've got the product, you've done surveys and you're looking at trends.
Yeah.
How did you, at the age of 23, learn how to sell the brand, the vision, the product? Because you have grown this insanely successful business and I believe sold it recently.
Yes, we sold it this year. So I think it's funny, isn't it? 'Cause I think that when you are 23, I think that probably is like a really nice weapon. I can't go back to being 23, but I think being 23 and being probably pretty confident, highly naive is probably quite helpful. But being hungry is helpful too. Very early on in Nails Inc., quite a lot of things had to happen in order for the business model to be what we planned to do. So we had to open a nail bar. That cost quite a lot of cash.
That was on South Molton Street.
So an expensive rent with an expensive rent deposit, with an expensive shop fit design, with a full range of product that would probably fit 50 stores, not one store, because nail polish, like everything else, comes with a minimum quantity order. Because all of that was happening, and we were selling effectively to the customer by going, here's our premises, please come in because it looks X, Y, and Z. And we had a lot of PR, and we obviously knew PR well. So we had very good PR and queues around the block and on national TV and lots of great stuff, because it was the kind of first 15-minute manicure for people in their lunch break. So it had a good angle and relevant news story to get the press, which was an environment I knew well and how to garner that.
You got the traffic in early.
But still, one nail bar was hardly going to change the world, right? So that's one nail bar with, and a whole team of people, by the way, 10 manicurists working in a store, a manager, a receptionist, hefty costs in every way, everything going out the door. Money coming in because the store was busy, but absolutely not enough money to cover what was going on in terms of costs. And I think we were quite lucky in the fact Phoenix department store came into our store, a wonderful woman called Jill Streeter, who used to manage Phoenix. She came into our store and saw the queue and the buzz and the hype and said, you could open in our ground floor in Phoenix, in the middle of the beauty counter on Bond Street, which was fantastic. And on the back of doing that, and she was a tough cookie, and she taught us a hell of a lot of lessons very quickly. It was baptism by fire. In terms of, remember, we're now operating and probably open for a couple of months. And a few months later, we're operating in Bond Street in a department store with huge traffic. And we are sitting next to, I remember Chanel was the counter next to us. You've got like Chanel, Estee Lauder, those brands next to you. And you're still writing your kind of training books for your team about how to do everything. So there was quite an intense, steep learning curve. But I think once we'd proven Phoenix Bond Street, which still continues to be a learning curve, but once we proved that, we then went to other department stores. So Selfridges, Harvey Nichols, House of Fraser, Debenhams back in the day. And I guess that's when selling came in. But I think it was driven by a couple of things. One, okay, we've got some success. We can bottle this and roll it out. It is scalable. We have to scale out the nail bars to build the brand to get to the next stage, which is want to sell the product in Boots, Superdrug, Sephora.
To get the volume.
So I think you go in and sell. It's a very long answer to this question. You go in and sell because A, you really believe in it. So you're really passionate about it. You do actually genuinely think you're changing the world, despite the fact you're just manicuring people. And I think that's what gives you the courage. And what was great about Nails Inc. is I remember really early on, people walking into the store and asking for either the products or services by name. And it gave you that. It was a very small pool of people. Really, our first two stores were around the corner from each other, both in the heart of Mayfair. But it did give you very quickly, people are attached to this brand. They like it. They want to come back. They want to rebuy into the product. It's a brand for X many hundred or thousand people, not millions, but it's starting to be a brand. I think you are confident. You don't really know all the pitfalls. That's quite helpful.
Oh, ignorance is bliss for sure.
Ignorance is quite bliss. I think that is fair. But I also think Because you don't know anything, you've got zero ego. I really feel like this lady at Phoenix, Jill Streeter, and actually Vanita, who runs Blink Broward, if you know her, she also went through the same experience as me 'cause she opened was her first store too. I feel like she also was like in the best possible way, the strictest headmistress in retail you could have met. And she was old school. If someone in our team were wearing the kind of the wrong tights, or they'd put, I mean, today you could wear trainers with your outfit. Everything's changed so much. This is back in the world where people wore heels and worked in a nail bar all day and would have that. It's different kind of look and feel, right? But she gave me such strict guidelines. And I think also just eyes, just to look at everything and to challenge and go, that's not good enough. Because again, the customer is who we're serving here. So no, you can't be 5 minutes late. No, you can't wear the wrong outfit. You can't not say the correct thing to the customer at the right time. No, you can't not do the service fully just because the customer's 5 minutes late. You now have to work out how you're going to do her service and be on time for your next customer, and kind of tough. I think that was really good for us. I think the pressure from her was it was brilliant pressure. And we continued to go through that learning with all the department stores. And then we were lucky in the fact the department stores liked it. They needed something different. So we got quite favorable terms in terms of how we went into department stores as quite a small company. And we expanded then very rapidly. House of Fraser and Debenhams had lots of stores. So we rolled out across the UK.
You're selling to the consumer who's using the product, the end product, but you're also then selling the brand into the retailers.
Yes.
And would you say that retail expansion was the key to success for your brand building as big as it did to get that awareness out there?
Yeah, I guess today social media is what department stores were back then. Department stores back then were your advert, right? A counter in Selfridges or Harvey Nichols. A counter in Selfridges or Harvey Nichols was an amazing advert. A bit
Because
like today.
people would go into bricks and mortar and browse. Yeah.
Today, I'm thinking of US retailers, but if you have a big space in Target in the US or in Sephora or Ulta, it's an advert for your brand, right? Boots in their kind of premium stores, it's an advert for your brand. And if Superdrug has rolled your product out across all their stores, they're telling their customers that they really back and believe this brand, right? Today, it's probably a mixture of the high street retailers rather than the department stores. And then also social media, right? Tells you what's on trend. Influencers tell us what's next, don't they? It's slightly different.
That third-party authority that comes
Correct.
from coverage, either print, digital, or influence, someone else saying that your product is good is way more authentic or believable than you telling someone your product is good. But given, to start with, taking it back to that South Molton Street hype, and the PR got the footfall in the door, but then your team, how very early on did you convert or get your team to convert those people coming in to buying the product?
Straight away. So straight away, we employed manicurists, but we turned them into retailers. And they were scripted in terms of brand story. They were very well trained. They talked about the products and they made it a no-brainer, which, to be fair, it is. If you've just had your nails painted in a lovely turquoise and you haven't got that color at home, the reality of nail polish is it will always chip. It will chip at some point. So if you want your manicure to last a little bit longer when you've paid for a manicure, you should always, I would say that to anyone now, unless you've got the color, you would always buy the color because you spent the money. The next bit's the no-brainer.
So you'd frame it very quickly. And the price point of the service and the product, the framing and the sales pitch.
We framed it together as a kind of package, but we also made the shop feel very sweetie shop, that you wanted to buy multiple colors. And nail polish is joyful that way, right? Rows of color. You want to buy the color that you're wearing and maybe even some others. So it was a very sweetie shop, enticing environment.
Is there something you would say to a new founder coming in, whether it be a product-based business or a service-based business, to tackle when it comes to sales? What would you say that they need to get over the fastest? It's an interesting one because everyone has a different product and different service they need to sell, but everybody does need to sell. Is there any sort of things that you've learned along the way that you want to advise founders on how to sell?
So I find it easy to sell a product if there's a story. So I've never been able to sell you, I'm wearing a burgundy nail polish. I've never 25 years later gone, you should buy this burgundy nail polish because it's burgundy. So I don't really know how to do that. I've never really learned that skill. I would think as a consumer and go, there's 25 other burgundies that you could buy. Buy mine, buy the one that's lowest price, buy the one that, is your favorite brand. We always have storytelling in Nails.INC. So that will be anything from the formulation. So we have a 45-second speedy polish. If I was talking to you about the colors, I would talk to you about the fact it's 45 seconds and I know how time poor you are. And you've just told me that you very rarely paint your nails because you don't have enough time. And I would talk to you about a category like 45-second speedy Or if you talk to me about nail health, I'd talk to you about ingredients rather than just a pure color. I think it's easier if you have storytelling.
So you're hearing the consumer's problem.
I think problem solution and I think storytelling, because otherwise you buy the white shirt versus the white shirt. But if you buy the white shirt that you saw Sienna Miller wearing and she was doing it, and this happened and that happened, and then suddenly it's not just a white shirt anymore, I'm more probably inspired by that. Or just a solution. Like I think we're all looking for those kind of time busting solutions. So what's something that's going to cheat but still look great?
Yeah.
And I think I'm always looking for that, particularly in beauty. I think storytelling gives you also, if you're on a pitch to a retailer, which today is so often done by Teams or Zoom, if you're on a pitch to a retailer, I think your story's over quite fast if you're selling on something as basic as here's this color or here's this style. But if you go, we created X because we saw a gap in the market and we saw there was a white space because we looked at what the other brands were doing and nobody has a product that fits this gap. But here's the kind of consumer insights that say why the customer would want that. And here's what we're seeing happening in her general other lifestyle, how she's behaving in fitness tech, whatever else she's doing. And we know that she's already buying this style of product. Let's just say time saving is a good one. We know that she likes things that are time saving, or we know that she loves time saving and high tech. So we brought both of those elements into a new formulation because she's looking for the fastest way to do something. And she wants to know it's backed by science because technical ingredients are trending well. And that's why. Then I'd excite them with, I would absolutely do color, but I'd go, and here is all of this. And then I think the other thing with sales, which not every business can do, is a little bit of co-creation is always helpful. So I think to also today speak to the buyer that's buying from you, if it's the retailer or .com, and say, how would you think that what we've done could be packaged up differently to sell to you? So whether that's something as simple as you can't make a packaging change, you're just going to do a virtual bundle on a website where you're going to say, here's our best sellers at price of X, and that's how we're going to make something unique for you. Or whether it's a bigger retailer where you're going to say, I'm going to say Target, let's do the Target red color for you because you want to celebrate that color. Let's do that Target red. But I would also, I think if you can engage them into what would you like to do? You like this product that we're showing you, but what would you like to do to make it better or make it unique to you? I think most of the retailers today, they're engaged and they're looking for an exclusive. And sometimes they don't go ahead with the exclusive at that round, but they go, oh, you've reminded me you're a great company to work with because you can be the company I go to if I've got an idea.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you were saying about storytelling is so fascinating because I think a lot of people forget that people have a lot of information thrown at them all the time. And if you give them a story and something that hooks onto that story, they'll remember it and they'll take it home and it'll stay with them and it will come to the top of their mental inbox.
Exactly.
And I recently did a TEDx talk on why you are your own best storyteller. And it was around my business name. It's my mum's maiden name and my father's surname. Because when I was 10, I worked out what maiden names were. I was like, but I'm half of both of you. When I start my business, I'm going to call it Fallowfield and Mason because I'm 50%.
Lovely.
But not because I want to get that out there, but it's people like, oh, I remember the story behind it. And it anchors something around it.
And I think actually you mentioned naming. I think naming is also really interesting. I think if you can tie into what customers feel like, or just even something witty on a name that just ties in with a little bit of popular culture, I think that's also great because it's those names, especially in beauty, it's those names that you remember. And it also helps you repurchase it and Google. So it's practical. It helps you Google search it.
Yeah, for SEO optimization. Or
100%.
SEO. It's interesting. So there's a couple of things I was thinking about. Pip, who founded With Nothing Underneath, the shirt brand, when Meghan Markle wore her shirt to Wimbledon and then that surge that she saw. But then she called the shirt the boyfriend shirt because every girl wants to wear the boyfriend's shirt. And it's with nothing underneath and the boyfriend. And it's so clever because it's very simple but memorable, but quite cool and quirky. And you're like, oh, I like that. Makes me feel good. So again, thinking about that end consumer and delivering that solution, but in a way to get them to that solution. It's fascinating. I remember once, I think I was at Givenchy and they were talking about benefit and how they used to pat the seat in the department store when you walk past, saying, oh, just come and have a seat. And they'd physically pat it, which meant you physically wanted to sit in the seat.
I have someone that works in my business now that's ex-benefit and they were such clever marketeers. Phenomenal.
Yeah, and made it fun and playful. For you, given that you're now very successfully in the US market as well, was that a completely different pitch for you for US retailers?
Change here and there. But I think the messaging to the consumer, what you and I have just talked about, this is great because you're time poor, this is great because you've got this issue, is quite universal. And that's helpful for growing your business, right? If your top 10 is pretty much your top 10 everywhere, that is obviously very useful in terms of building your product and also managing your stock, managing your cash flow, everything else that comes with that. It does get simpler the less SKU intensive you are. So we definitely did carry on with our kind of best sellers from the UK globally. And then every so often co-creating with a retailer as well and doing something unique for them. But I do think today, especially with social, I feel like what's on trend moves globally so quickly. I think when I think about my magazine days, you had that view of Paris chic and then what was trending in London, which was like grungy and very cool, but not really very commercial. I feel like today that it's just all kind of one world, isn't it? Which I really like.
Yeah, it makes it easy to have that data point. And now we
Yeah.
have data. You can see at Google Analytics, for example, we've got more than your store team telling you if things
Yes.
work. I
Yes.
think I always found it so frustrating when I used to do high and fine jewelry PR because you'd have to rely on the store teams of who walked in with Tatler and pointed at the cover saying, I want that tiara.
Yes.
You'd never be able to measure it. Whereas now
You can measure everything.
it's gorgeous that you can.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And for you, the brand Nails.INC has now 3 subsidiary brands, Hollow and Glow, Incredible, and My Mood.
Yes.
For you, how do you manage the whack-a-mole of those incredible brands that you're building? Is it a different tactic to each? Are you applying the same learnings?
Each brand is definitely very different. What was great about doing brands outside of Nails.INC is once you start doing something completely from scratch again, so Hollow and Glow, which is our biggest brand outside of Nails.INC, once you start building out Hollow and Glow and what the Hollow and Glow world looks like and the consumer of Hollow and Glow, and you don't really have any rules right from the beginning because it's all new. What it did make me do was go back into Nails.INC and break rules and go, these rules are just rules that we have internally. We got all these rules of Nails.INC, price point is X, it doesn't do this, it stays in this lane. And Nails.INC is a relatively narrow lane anyway, because it's all focused around nail products. I think doing Hollow and Glow made me for sure go, okay, why can't we have a luxury price point, an entry price point? Why can't we also be in some ancillary products that are to do with nails, but aren't nail color? I think that's all quite helpful. What's great about having the other brands, because Nails.INC is ultimately an expert in nail, is Hollow and Glow allows you to do anything. So Hollow and Glow is a very free brand in the fact that it's originally set up in masking, it has lovely bathing range, it's a big successful brand in Target, but it also has now opportunities to be in this Christmas. It's got wonderful space in Target. It's got everything from beauty accessories to a kind of slightly techie accessory to color cosmetics, lip balms. And it does have nail in it too. There's some nails. So, some Nails.INC learnings in there as well. But it's broad. And if Hollow and Glow wanted to be a brand that just did accessories for Apple iPhones, Hollow and Glow can do that. And it's a funny thing, that really then invigorates me into Nails.INC, because I then say to Nails.INC, Nails.INC can also do, Hollow and Glow can do whatever the hell it wants, there's no rules, then Nails.INC must be allowed to go a little bit over here, and what else can you do? And I think it frees you up because you have to think so creatively about new. It gives you a new energy into the old.
It's so interesting because Nails.INC to me is such an established brand, but you coming into it, you started it was your idea.
Yeah.
You were Bambi in the first days, but now it's this huge established brand. But to keep yourself reinvigorated, it must be
Yes.
quite hard. But this
Yes.
challenger brand coming through would give you that entrepreneurial view again.
Yeah. And I think you need to keep having that. And that's why, and Hollow and Glow is still very entrepreneurial. And it does have this kind of view of, we should be doing whatever the customer wants. As long as the consumer and the retailer's on board with it, we can play quite broad. So yeah, it does give you the energy on Nails.INC to go, well, hold on a second, what else can Nails.INC be doing? And also to feel confident with the team and say, we don't have all these rules. These are like internal rules that we have.
The why.
Because actually the market's changed so much, and people's relationship with salons and doing their nails or not doing their nails, and there was obviously COVID in the middle of that as well, is so different. You have to keep saying, what does she want? What does she want to pay? What does she want the size impression to be like? How is she currently interacting with your product? What needs to change?
How's that customer changing that you want to serve? And this happens, I work in a co-working office, Soho Works, and You hear a lot of founder chat, and lots of it's in the gym as well. It's the kind of founder ego versus the consumer solution. And actually, none of us would be here without our clients. They have
Yes.
to be the number one, as well as our employees, but they have to come first, because without
Yes.
them, we wouldn't have companies. And there's a lot of founders I've seen really struggle saying, but I want to do this. But if your customer doesn't want that, it
No,
doesn't
I know.
work.
I know.
And what would you say has been the most challenging part for you with Nails.INC and sales generally?
I think finding good salespeople to represent your brand is not easy. I don't know how you found that. I think that's quite challenging. I have great people in my business at the moment, absolutely fantastic. But I think finding people to
Mm.
go out and represent your brand and sell it as well as you could sell it, that's challenging. We have a great sales team today, phenomenal.
Mm.
And particularly with the acquisition, we have a particularly strong sales team as well, both UK and US side. But I think in the early days, getting that message across, you wear so many hats as an entrepreneur, right? That's the challenging bit. You just do sort of what excites you every day as you're wearing 200 hats, and what makes you want to quit as you're wearing 200 hats. You know what I mean? That's always been the challenge. I'm lucky enough to now know lots of other founders, particularly female founders, through a network. And I think I think entrepreneurs naturally have that want to do it all. But yeah, it's a lot of hats and it's a lot of pressure.
It's interesting because we had a question from our last guest, which was Molly and Joel, who founded
Yeah.
Denson and Dempsey. And
Yes, I wear those pajamas. I love it. I love those pajamas. I was wearing them last night. They're
that's
fantastic.
amazing. Massive coincidence, because Molly's question for you was, how do you manage to hang on to the things that you love in your role?
Yes.
And it's hard because when you grow so quickly and your brand is 25 years old,
Yeah.
you will have had to give other bits of the job that you love
You
to other
do.
people. But how have you managed to ring fence the parts that you love?
I think I still go back to creatives. That doesn't mean I can be creative all day or even every day, but I go back to what we talked about at the beginning, which is, what does the customer want? What is exciting? What's happening in the wider world? And how can we bring that into something exciting going forward? And so I very quickly put myself back into, I guess it's a mixture of product development and marketing, right? It's a
Mm.
combo. And I go back there. I don't ever like to go too many days without doing that. So I definitely pull myself back into that quite quickly. The rest, I think, if other people are doing, so whether it's sales, finance, ops, if other people are doing that, that's fine. And that's great. And you need all the support you can. I think when it comes to the creative piece of thinking about the consumer and just that 360, that I think you just learn as a founder, right? That 360 of going problem solution, but what are all the facets? What does this look like to the end consumer? What would the marketing be? How would I talk to a retailer about this? How would we even develop it? Who would we go to? Which factory would we talk to? That 360 piece, I think that probably is quite a founder skill, because you did it at the beginning, right? Where you had to think about all the
Yeah.
elements. Most people who've worked in an organization have never had to think in that 360 way.
And for you, that makes you feel like you've got your finger on the pulse.
It makes me feel grounded again. Yeah, definitely. Just to be back into it.
But what it's about me, it's spreadsheets for me. I absolutely love spreadsheets.
Does that make you feel grounded? Yes.
Yeah. I was like, even PR and communications, I was like, I love a spreadsheet. But whatever it is, you need to get back to it.
I think so. And I think budgeting does that as well. I think if you're feeling at all anxious about, I don't know, good news, bad news, or maybe some bad news, I think budgeting and going, okay, it's not about today, it's about the 12-month period or the 24-month period or 36-month period. I think budgeting also grounds you in terms of the longer term view, because any business can have a bad day, bad week, bad month. What's the longer term view of where are we going over a collective period? And then I'm destabilized by not having a good team. I think whenever I don't have the right people in all the kind of key roles, I would feel destabilized. I definitely need to have a good, solid team around me.
Everyone says people are the hardest part, the best and the hardest part.
The best and the
role.
hardest.
Yeah.
The best and the hardest. No, we've got a phenomenal team here at the moment, but they're talented, and talented people get headhunted all the time. That's the other challenge, is making sure that you retain them and that they're excited and they're developing with you.
But you're doing something right, because in our research, it said that Nails.INC turnover was £20 million in 2023 and projected to hit 25 million in 2024.
Yeah.
They estimated 32 million in 2025. So you've got the right people doing the right things.
We've got phenomenal people. No, we're very lucky.
Joel's question was, what was the step change for you regarding sales? What for you happened that just went and it just transformed the business?
I would say two things. I would say taking the product outside of the nail bars and it being a brand. So we did that in the UK, first of all, with Boots and John Lewis and then QVC, all in very quick succession of each other. and then doing our first overseas business. We did the US and Japan again, similar times. I think we are definitely that business that if you see an opportunity, you'll seize it. But I think doing those things versus the original core nail bars, and knowing that was always the mission of the business, take product outside of the bars and then to take that product outside of the UK as well. And that definitely transformed it from a sales level.
It's interesting. Someone said in season 1, as long as you're happy with the company you run in 5 years being nothing like the company that you start today, you're fine. Just be completely open-minded and lean into it.
Yes, I think that's good advice. I think that's really good advice because I think, like you said before, if you've got a founder or CEO or anyone that just wants to do what they've always been doing, right? Because it's their vision and their idea. And you meet those people all the time. You often get them in my world, you often get them in designers and creative people where they go, but I need it to look like this because this is my vision. And I go, okay, but the consumer doesn't understand that, or the consumer doesn't care. Worse, it's not even like they don't understand it. They don't care. They don't think it's relevant. Like you're just wasting their time. And they're interesting challenges to have amongst the business. But I think you're right. I think the core of Nails.INC, which is we are a nail polish brand serving what the consumer wants, and the product would stand outside of a nail bar, is still the same business. We didn't intend to set up our other brands doing other things outside of Nails.INC, and Holler and Glow at some point could surpass the turnover of Nails.INC or certainly be the same. It's growing very quickly.
Do you sleep?
I do. I love to sleep. I think I'm a mix, actually. Do you sleep?
I do. I wasn't when I was moving house, but I'm loving the fact I'm back to sleeping now because it just sounds like you've got so much going on, but you manage it seamlessly. You're the swan.
I think I do a sort of catch-up sleep. Our business at the moment, we're owned by an LA company, so I have some funky time differences to manage, and I can definitely do that for a while, and then I need a big catch-up. So then I will go to bed at literally 8 o'clock and have a great sleep, or do it on the weekend. I do need to sleep, but I also, if I've got a to-do list and things to do, I've got very high energy levels to keep going and do it. As long as you feel like you're making progress. I can be quite lazy if I don't feel like I'm making progress. I'm very active if I feel like it's moving forward.
It's that entrepreneurial mind, which is like lots of things going on and you want to do them and you're drawn to them. It's exciting.
But if it's not moving fast enough, I kind of retreat and rework the plan a bit and go back for a bit, try and work out why it's not moving forward, go back into myself for a bit.
What would your question be for the next guest? It could be anything around sales or starting business or anything.
Mine would be what you would do if you're not afraid. So I think that's always the interesting. If I could go back into Nails.INC, so many moments when you're afraid. So mine would be, what would you do if you're just not frightened?
Yeah. Someone I can't remember who it was yesterday, saying you can be your own worst enemy, and it's only your own limiting beliefs that will tell you can't do something. And that deluded optimism you have when you start a business is, I'm going to solve this problem, it's going to be amazing. And then I think we're coming up to year 5 in April. It's like, I am quite tired now. This is still a job and I've worked really hard, but you need that fire in your belly to keep being like, and that's where we got B Corp Certified last year. And that for me was that
gave it to you
huge lift of keep going. So needing that kind of, and when you were 23, I imagine you're like, take over the world, why not? But if you're not afraid, you're genuinely not afraid, and I think that's when you have no overheads and no team and no other people's livelihoods at stake. But
even when you've got other people's livelihoods, I remember someone saying that to me as very good advice, because I remember early days of Nails.INC thinking, wow, I don't know if I'm meant to be this responsible for this many people. Oh my goodness. If you really think about it, people are literally relying on their mortgage payments by your salary. When you're a startup, if you actually thought that through, you'd probably never do it. And I do remember people saying to me, or someone saying to me, that first of all, everyone has a choice. And they have obviously believed in what you're doing. The responsibility really is for you just to follow through what you said to them you were going to do, rather than thinking about their income, their mortgages, or your own. I think quite interesting, you could go, you told them something, now just carry on delivering what you said to them was going to happen. Because they've already believed it. They're already selling your dream to other people. They're already spreading the word. So just go and finish what you said you'd start with them. And I find that quite relaxing. And then I don't know if you do this, but I also go worst case scenario quite fast.
Yes,
and then I find that catastrophizing very calming.
Completely. Hence the spreadsheets. You run the numbers, you run the numbers. You're like, actually, it's all fine. What was I worried about? Yeah.
It's all fine.
All fine. Oh, I love this. Thank you so much, Thea. This is wonderful advice.
It's a pleasure.
It's been a joy talking to you, and huge congratulations on everything that you've built.
Thank you so much, and to you too. Thank you for everything.
If you'd like to contact Thea, you can find all of her details in the show notes, along with a recap of the advice she has so kindly shared.